How's the competition doing?
Well, he's trying to light the firewood without tinder or kindling.
Oh, very good, Captain.
Well, yeah. Well, I hope he likes the cold, because he's going to be cold.
Oh, dear. Oh, I could blow that over.
Well, yeah.
And I've got asthma. Yeah. And I'm dead.
Hello and welcome to Haunting Button House, a BBC Ghost podcast. I am Luke and I am joined by Tash. How are you today?
I am Luke.
That's me.
That's you. You alright?
Yeah, I'm okay. Yeah.
I'm alright, thanks.
This is our first podcast, if you've not listened to it before.
I find it so cringe to, just
talk.
introduce ourselves.
Yeah.
It's just embarrassing.
It is weird, isn't it? Because it's like, well, you're my wife, so like it's a weird introducing myself to you.
I don't think you ever ask me, how are you?
That sounds really bad.
No, but like, I'm just tell you without you having to ask.
It's just natural conversation, isn't it? It's like, yeah. I do ask sometimes, like when I pick you up, like, how's was work? And it's just like, just the same as every other day.
I guess. So what have you been up to this week, Luke?
What have I been up to? Well, we both went to the Shropshire show. What's it called, actually? What's it?
The county show.
The county show. That's it, yeah.
We saw some animals, some cows, sheep.
Very agricultural.
Owls.
Yeah.
Bees.
We did. We saw birds getting scared by chainsaws.
Yeah, and I didn't blame them.
Yeah.
And best of all, we saw the Quack Pack, which is... Well, you didn't see them.
I didn't.
You were somewhere else.
I was hiding from the sun in the bandstand. Or
my
mum
and I saw the Quack Pack, and I'm happy to share the video if anyone would like to see. But there was some ducks, and they were being herded by herd.
Yeah.
H-E-R-D.
Herded, yeah. I think it's herded, yeah.
By a dog, and it was great, and they just all lived in harmony. It was absolutely brilliant.
That now you would have me if they were herded by a pig, a la the film Babe. now then we're talking.
But the ducks doesn't get herded. That's the sheep being herded by the pig.
I guess it is kind of like Babe in it, the county show, because that's kind of what they do.
If the animals could talk and interact with each other. Then,
basically. It's that kind of thing. Yeah.
That would be great. That would be such a good... I'm sure that Creature Comforts, it's already been done. I was going to say, interview the animals.
Yeah. Creature Comforts. And they're doing it for just random BBC things.
BBC things, yeah. It was ITV, though, before, wasn't it?
I can't remember,
It was good. I remember it being better, and then recently trying to watch it on YouTube and going, it's not that funny anymore, actually.
I think there's a lot of stuff like that, like in hindsight, when you watch it back, it's like, it's not as funny as it was. A lot of stand-up, I think, from like about 10 years ago doesn't hold up, like when you watch it now. But, yeah. But yeah, it was a good, wholesome day out, I'd say. Seeing tractors... There was, I'm trying to see farmer floats. There you go. That's about it, really.
It was.
For my week, I went to see a band yesterday. Random sort of, I got asked last minute if I wanted a free ticket to go and see Tool in Birmingham. And that was an interesting show. I think I said to you when I came back, I can't imagine what being on LSD would be like, but watching their stage show was probably as close to it. There was a lot of kaleidoscopic images and lasers and stuff like that. I think we both me and my mate turned to each other and just said at one point, I've just zoned out for about 12 minutes then. So yeah, it was
a lot going on.
Yeah, it was an interesting show, I'll say that. But yeah, that's no connection to ghosts whatsoever there. So let's move swiftly on.
So we've got some feedback.
Okay.
So Caroline, so without wanting to go too much into the discussion about COVID, which I think we've had at the beginning of the last few episodes.
Yeah.
Caroline said, I have heard the writers/cast in interviews talking about filming the series through COVID restrictions. I gather they were kept in bubbles of 2 or 3 cast members with whom they were working with most during the episode. And then some scenes are pieced together so that it looks as though they're all together in a room when they weren't. They achieved this so well that you didn't really notice it, and I guess their experiences of filming the same scene with and without ghosts in it probably stood them in good stead for this. Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, true.
Definitely. I never even thought about that.
It's a unique sort of way of filming, so they can, like in most dramas or TV dramas, you wouldn't be able to do something like that. So
no. I wonder if this episode is in fact the place where it is most discernible. Oh my... It's not even a big word. I just can't even think of the word. It's full of groups of characters working slightly apart from the rest of the cast, so that's true. Thomas is with Mary but never enters the room. He talks to her from the doorway. Captain, Humphrey's Head and Mike spend time in the office. Pat is with Kitty. Alison is with Lucy and Thomas with Thomas following them around.
Okay,
Julian is with Robin, and in the flashbacks he isn't physically close to anyone.
Yeah.
Thomas sort of addresses the issues of being able to sit... this is another point. So the COVID, yes.
Yeah, I suppose it's a unique way of getting around that, of like having them all separate off into twos.
Little groups. Yeah. But they kind of do that anyway. I think that they do have that in... That's been a case all through the series, is that they've each episode they do tend to have their little groups rather than everyone all together doing one thing, which does happen, but just less often.
I noticed that in a lot of like sitcom kind of programs, like when there's a group of people, like next time you watch like Friends or anything like that, each episode will be, okay, in this episode it's going to be
these
friends,
two
for example.
friends,
yeah, it's going to be Joey and Monica, and then in the next episode Joey will be with Chandler, and in the next episode Joey will be with, and they just kind of move. That's how they keep things fresh. I think they're just pairing everybody up for different adventures. Yeah, because if it was all of them together, it'd just be a mess. So
it would just be too much going on.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
and life doesn't work like that.
Well, true. Yeah,
like you don't tend to be with the same 5 other people all the time.
Yeah.
So that is how it kind of works. So Caroline also said Thomas sort of addresses the issue of being able to sit on the chair whilst also being able to pass through it. When Julian's exploring this, Thomas says something like, I know, it makes no sense. I missed that.
True, yeah.
I guess I guess it's just that sitting on a chair or other object is something we've always done through life, and we subconsciously position ourselves correctly in relation to the chair. So it makes sense. Caroline also said, I absolutely love the Kitty and Pat dance sequences in this episode.
Yeah.
I can't hear Saturday Night Now without seeing these scenes. There were lots of good bits in the episode, but I never really warmed to the Lucy story arc somehow. I think that it's fairly obvious where this is probably going, and although it's the main hook for this series, I'd rather get on with the ghosts, Alison and Mike storyline.
Yeah, I get. So, yeah. I guess it's them trying to find ways to keep it fresh, so it's not just. So they introduce new characters, and I suppose for this series, Lucy's this new sort of thing in there. Yeah.
Marianne said, a dime is 10 cents in US money.
Yes, yeah. I have heard that. I just, when put on the spot, I don't remember anything.
And Tash's BSO, of course, has me wondering, somewhere are there deaf ghosts, blind ghosts? What if Helen Keller became a ghost? Paraplegic ghosts? What if a paraplegic ghost died without a wheelchair? Oh God. So much to think about.
That sounds like a punishment, you know what I mean?
That's I like to think that I like to think that in the next life, even though it's still technically this life, if whichever way you want to swing it, that I was going to say someone may be regain the ability if they had it in the first place.
Yeah, you just go back to your... I remember there's something where... I don't know if it's like a TV show or a film or something like that, where basically when you go as a ghost or go back to wherever, you're at your most ideal time, like body-wise,
But
I
then
suppose.
would Pat have an arrow through his...
True, yeah,
That's a difficult thing. But he's not necessarily in consistent pain with that.
Mm-hmm. True. I just think of... There was... There's a Metallica music video where they just took like bits from a film called Johnny Got His Gun. It's like a World War One film where a guy gets his arms and legs blown off, his eyes blown out, like ears go, tongue and everything, can't speak, and he's just literally just like trapped in his body.
That sounds lovely.
I can't imagine anything worse than going, yeah, and when you die as a ghost, you're going to stay like that forever. It's like, he literally, the
Die
only
as
thing...
a ghost.
Well, it's like, his only thing is, just let me die so I can, like, you know, don't suffer this. It's like, don't bring you back. Like, that's the worst thing ever. But yeah, sorry, I just thought of that when you were saying, would they come back with these things? I was like, no, don't punish them.
No, that would be awful. Let's hope that when somebody passes, if they have an illness, that they're free of that illness. Basically. Or maybe they regain the ability to see or hear. Let's hope.
That would be the kindest thing.
if we just think that. Nice thoughts. So Marianne also said, I think Loose Women is probably the British equivalent of our US The View.
The View, that
Thanks
was it,
for explaining that, as I've never heard of Loose Women before this episode. Yeah, you don't need to try and watch it because it's terrible.
Yeah, it is basically The View, but even less of celebrities because it's the UK.
Lucy equals evil. I knew from the start she was trouble. Kitty and Pat's dancing was delightful. So many little tidbits in this episode. Funny, conveniently missing the Titanic. If she had gone down with the Titanic, she'd be forever wandering the seabed, disapprovingly pursing her lips together to the passing fish. Marianne said, this wasn't my favourite episode, but I knew Lucy was going to be going to bridge into more... I knew Lucy was going to be trouble. I'm putting words in your mouth there. I knew Lucy was going to bridge into more episodes. Marianne would give it a 7.75. Luke giving it a 6 seems a bit shocking, but I know he's not a generous rater.
Wow.
I googled the Paris catacombs. Pretty interesting stuff. So many rules, lots of steps, no handicapped access, and no touching of the skulls, even if you are sight impaired. You can bring a guide dog though, but not a white cane. Those wacky Parisians.
You got what?
Yeah,
that's surreal.
Crazy.
Yeah.
And then Nick said, I kind of agree that this is one of the weaker episodes. Humphrey as Mr. Cheese is hilarious. And did you notice the Irish lady on the phone is voiced by Martha, who plays Fanny?
I didn't know.
That's crazy.
I had no idea. I reckon if you go back and listen to it now, you could probably hear it.
Yes.
But I had no idea at the time.
I guess it was in the credits that we missed. So
I like how sometimes when they have like a mystery person, they'll just give them like a silly like pseudonym, like
Dick Van Dyke is
Oh yeah, in Mary Poppins, yeah.
That's going to annoy me now. But
the banker he plays.
Yeah, he plays.
I can't remember what his pseudonym is. Yeah.
But yeah, so Nick said obviously they need to introduce Lucy, but as a standalone episode, it isn't one that I particularly remember.
Yeah.
And Chantal said, agreed, not the strongest episode, but the introduction of Lucy was definitely suspicious from the get-go. I remember watching this episode for the first time thinking there's something not right about her. Julian's opinion of her was spot on. Now, I just want to take a moment to read and really capture what Chantal said.
Okay.
In the next bit. She said, Tash, your bit on the catacombs of Paris was absolutely fascinating, and don't worry, your French was pretty good.
Wow.
We'll just, I think we'll just... I think we'll just leave that there.
Yeah.
Thank you, Chantal.
This week we are looking at the episode The Woodworm Men, which is episode 3 of series 3. It was directed by Nick Collette, written by Matthew Bainton and Jim Howick, and the original air date was the 16th of August 2021. We start with Mary waking up We see this red light coming from under the door.
I think
and smoke.
when it first started, I thought the pigeon was back because I could just hear a pigeon.
Oh, maybe.
And I
that
was
pigeon.
like,
I guess the pigeon can't leave, can he? So
well, no, but I imagine it was just another pigeon.
Another
but
pigeon.
I just.
So we see red light and smoke coming from under the door. Very sort of satanic kind of thing, especially with Mary.
Yeah.
And we see in walks, what we find out later is a fumigator, but it's a man dressed up with like gas masks and the full, don't know what you call them, overalls, which terrifies Mary. She runs away fleeing, saying that she's seeing men with the heads of flies. And we see that there's plastic wrapping on everything. As she runs out of the house, all the other ghosts are outside and they sort of laugh at her. And they said, well, we were told, we knew that they were coming today. And they start to mock Mary, saying that she's scared of everything.
I think she's scared when someone comes at her and it looks like smoke and fire, which is very understandable.
And also, I think with Mary, like, she's not able to get her head around a lot of modern like sort of innovations. So.
Yeah, definitely. So I do think it's a bit unfair that they were
mocking her for being scared. Yeah. But they do, and Alison doesn't help when she says, "Oh, don't worry, Mary, they're just the Woodworm Men," and she starts to panic, thinking what these Woodworm Men could be. That's pretty much the intro. I think they do mention. They go into something later on, but yeah, that was the intro anyway. We see Alison and Mike are all packed up, and they say that they're staying out of the house because of the fumigation, which again confuses Mary, not understanding what fumigation is. We see the ghosts have all left the house as well, although they don't have to. It's not going to affect them. No. I think they just don't want to be on their own, yeah. She says that she's set everything up in the house for them, so, you know, they can go in there, it's fine. There's a chessboard set up for Robin and Julian. All the books' pages are turned, so Fanny can continue reading. And she also tells Kitty that Grease is on the movie channel, which she's left on. Although she says that it's on in about 4 hours' time, and Kitty decides that she's going to have to start waiting now in anticipation.
Doesn't she say it's on at like 4 o'clock and it's 9 o'clock or 10 o'clock?
That's it. Yeah, something like that. But I mean, if it's on the movie channel, she's going to get a lot of films leading up to that. So yeah, it's good day.
She does.
Yeah. Well, yes, yeah. I did think at this point, I wonder what the fumigators think. Like, they must be walking around the house going, why has she left the TV on?
Yeah.
And
also, why she stood at the front of her house talking to herself.
Yes, yeah. We have to assume that she kind of looks around and makes sure that nobody's spotting this, I suppose. But yeah. Fanny's quite happy that everyone's going to be at the house, specifically Mike, because she said she won't have to listen to his popular music. At the sight of their tents, Pat goes into overdrive, realising that they're going to go camping, which is pretty much his reason for living. For being a ghost, I don't know.
Was his reason.
Yeah. Robin's not really convinced on this. He doesn't understand why you would sleep outside by choice. And he says specifically it's not fun when a wolf eats your eye. And says that this happened to his brother or his cousin. Mike is not convinced on camping. He's not really outdoorsy. I like how he tries to talk, but he sees Alison talking to them, realises the ghosts are there, so then tries to say something to them, to which Thomas says, why does he always talk to us like we're up in the air? Which I always just a funny line. It's like, it's true, he always does go up like that, but naturally, I guess you would assume ghosts just float.
Would you?
Maybe, yeah. Just because, like, they're like classic sort of, is like there are no legs and they're like the white sheet kind of ghosts. You just kind of think that they're just hovering. So I don't know. I just thought that's a funny.
I'm trying to think of like the Christmas Carol, like the.
Oh, like Marley and Marley. Sorry, I went straight to the Muppets version. Obviously, it's the definitive version. Yeah.
It's the only one.
Yeah. Why would you watch any other? You know what I mean? Pat and the captain are laughing at Mike's when he starts talking about his outdoorsy experiences. When I was going to say Charlotte then, Alison is talking about how he's only really done glamping, and that doesn't really count. So Pat and the captain are laughing. She joins in, and again another good line where he says, "Oh, having a little laugh with your little mates, your little dead mates." Just again, Mike's on fire in this bit. Back inside, we see the fumigators continuing, and Mary continues to hide. Mike goes into the shed. We don't really know why at this point. He's sort of stormed off.
He must know that there was a tent in there.
Yeah. He must have, done some recon before and saw that this was there. But he goes into there. We do find it later that he's gone to find a tent. We see Fanny already bored of a book and actually the peace and quiet. So I think
she just likes to argue with people, I think, doesn't she?
Basically, yeah. I think she just needs that sort of belittling of other people, I guess. That's what gets her through the day. We see Julian's asleep, and Robin is left with a cryptic crossword. And I can't remember what the clue is now. It's something like motion, or I don't know. Basically, motion object or something like that. And the clue is busybody, which he says out loud as Fanny walks in.
I think the answer's busybody.
Yes, sorry, yeah, the answer's busybody. Fanny walks in as he says this, thinking that she's sort of been insulted. When it's just the answer. But he does sort of say as she leaves, it says, it is true. Back outside, we see the captain starts commanding all of the camping efforts as they start doing the inventory on all of their gear. He clearly doesn't know much, although Pat is a fountain of knowledge at this point. He knows what everything is, he knows what everything's for, and the captain sort of just is
a bit put out, really.
Yeah, a bit upset that he's not enjoying, not as knowledgeable. But sometimes you just have to cede to the people who know what they're doing. You know what I mean? Thomas says that it's not fair. He would have taken Alison to Paris instead of just camping, if he wasn't dead, of course. Pat is absolutely marvelled by these new modern camping innovations because he says, "Where's your ground sheet?" and she says it's built in, and he just looks over the moon at this. We see what Mike's been up to. Yeah, he's gone to find this old tent, which Alison says is probably about 80 years old, but he says he's gonna beat her in this sort of camping challenge that they've sort of kind of impromptu set up. Mary, meanwhile, is back inside. She's trying to get rid of the Woodworm Men in the only way that she knows how, by just repeating "get out" over and over. I think she did this before, didn't she?
Yeah, she did it to Alison when they first wanted Alison and Mike to leave.
Yeah, so it's
like, get out, get out, get out, get out, get out, get out.
Which doesn't work, and she says, well, it's worth a try.
Yeah.
I forgot this was a callback until then, and I do quite like that, we're having that... bringing back of that I was going to say information, bringing back that sort of thing from an early series. We see Kitty sat waiting patiently for Grease to come on. Fanny comes in being a busybody again. So yeah, pretty much nailed it. She starts telling Kitty to keep it down, even though she's not making any noise whatsoever. She's sitting quietly watching this film. Back at it.
I love how happy Kitty is.
Yeah.
Like the way she just kind of, I don't know, it's just, she just like sort of laughs and smiles to herself.
Yeah.
Like she's just genuinely thrilled to be there.
Yeah,
and, like sort of experience different things, isn't she? It's
again, it's that like childlike, like just joy of just like
she puts
the
her
anticipation.
hands together like in her lap.
Yeah,
and is just like just can't like contain like how like happy she is. It's really sweet. I think more time goes on, like the more Kitty, I like her character more.
Yeah.
It's
I do think that I think the original cast was like Julian, Pat, Thomas, the captain, I think, and Fanny. I think they're like the original. Oh, and Robin, not Robin, but Humphrey. So they're like the original from like the pilot and everything. I think they'd probably nailed their character earlier, but as the series go on, people like Kitty and Mary, I think, and even, well, I think Robin was more fully formed when he came into it, but like they find their groove a bit better, and they sort of go into their character, especially like Kitty and Mary anyway. So yeah, it just takes some time, I think, with them. Pat then starts giving Alison a crash course in how to set up a tent, and we get this kind of tent setting up montage.
it looks quite good by the end. Like it's held up quite well.
Yeah. I mean, using like rope to secure it on the trees and stuff like that, which I've never even thought to do.
No.
It usually is just peg it down and that's it.
And
You're
hope
away.
for the best.
Hope there's not a strong gust of wind. Yeah. The captain gets really into the knot tying as well. Doesn't know any of the names of the knots and gets upset by this, but you can kind of see where this is going with like Pat being the scout leader again and the captain being his scout. So yeah, I quite liked this sort of interaction between them all. She wonders how Mike's getting on, so the captain goes running off to see how he's doing. I think he's struggling, to say the least.
I do like how the captain's like hiding from Mike, knowing full well that you absolutely cannot see him.
Yeah, it's a good, and with like binoculars with his hands, like it's a good visual gag that like until Pat comes and basically tells him you don't need to do that, you can't see it. So, but yeah, Mike's not getting on well. His tent's not set up. It's kind of just falling over at the moment. We go back to Alison and she gets another sort of training montage of how to build a fire, which is quite useful actually. Like I think if you're ever needed to build a campfire, then there you go. Follow the ghosts. Yeah. We see back inside we see Grease is starting now and Kitty is overjoyed at this fact. We go back and we see Alison is now fully set up. She's got a tent, she's got a fire, and as Pat comments, she even has a brew and a biscuit.
This is the best bit, you know. Everything's up, fire's going, got your brew, you got your biscuit. You can dip it?
Yeah, okay.
Dip it again. Lovely.
Yeah.
Lovely that.
Pat gets a bit creepy in this bit, doesn't he?
It's a bit weird how it's funny, but it almost crosses that line of like
it's very voyeuristic in it of like it's like
a bit odd.
Yeah, especially for Pat. But I mean, it's funny because it's nothing actually like that's wrong. It's just somebody enjoying a biscuit, but it's just the way he acts.
He says it in the side eye as well. And the mouth open. It gives me the creeps.
the licking his lips.
Yeah, it's very strange.
While this is happening, Thomas is also sat with them, again fawning over Alison, and he says that she should see the world, and we basically find out that Thomas has actually toured Europe. He says he's been to Vienna, Venice. There was another one, I can't remember where he says that he went. I want to say somewhere in France. anyway, he's been...
Venice was the one that stuck in my head.
Venice and Vienna is the ones that I remember him mentioning. And he says to expand his sort of his scope, his inspiration, and to expand his language as well, to describe things. So when Alison asks him what Vienna was like, the best he can come up with is that it was nice, which sort of, it makes you initially think of what Alison eventually comes to the conclusion of, that maybe he's lied about this and he's not actually been there, which is what the vibe you get from him when he's sort of describing this. Mike comes to check on Alison to see how she's doing. Is surprised at how much progress she's made, but again, she's had a helping hand here, although he's not aware of that. We go back inside and we see Mary continuing to try to dispel the fumigators. Kitty hears Mary as she's running through and goes chasing her to get her to come and watch Grease with her. As soon as she leaves, Julian enters, realising that the TV's on and that as the only ghost who can actively change the channel, he suggests they find something a bit more adult, and manage to make his way to the adult channel, but gets stuck because it's pin protected and he can't get onto it. So he continues to sort of flick through the channels and ends up stuck on the horror channel. Right as A Nightmare on Elm Street's about to start.
I've never seen that film.
So, I mean, you know the gist of it, right?
No.
So, the joke makes more sense, I suppose. So, Nightmare on Elm Street is the Freddy Krueger, the guy with the
I think I know what that is.
He kills people. If you fall asleep, he kills you in your dream, which kills you in real life.
God.
Yeah. So like some of the jokes later on, we'll get to it when we get to that bit, but some of the jokes later on make more sense, I suppose, if you know the plot of that film. That's interesting. Like, I thought it was like just like the
Pop
general
culture.
Yeah, I thought the general like concept.
You know me, Luke. I've not famously not watched a lot of films.
Well,
famously.
Yeah. But anyway, so he leaves that on and just wanders away. At this point, Kitty returns and he's completely unaware that the TV's been changed, because she did watch a bit of Grease,
yes,
so that should be mentioned. So she's seen a bit of it, and then now it's switched to Nightmare on Elm Street, and she's none the wiser, which is funny because they're very different films. Mike, meanwhile, is struggling with his fire now. He's just basically just chucking twigs on top of one another and just trying to light them. To which, again, Pat and the captain are sort of laughing on. Pat says that he could blow that over, and the tent that he's talking about, he has asthma and he's dead. So, I didn't do the comic timing there. I think we're using it as our intro quote, so at least you got that at the beginning. We see Fanny continuing to wander through the house. She tries to scold Humphrey for his head falling off again, but as she walks over, he's asleep, or that's what she thinks, so she wanders away, and Humphrey is basically pretending to sleep, and he says, oh, thank God for that. He'd rather just be stuck on the floor than have to be talked to by Fanny. Yeah. We see Robin and Julian are now continuing their game of chess. I like how Robin describes the bishop as the willy-shaped dude. What does he say, dude? I'm sure I wrote dude then. I'm like, he wouldn't say that, would he?
It's possible.
Possible, yeah.
Yeah, maybe. It's possible he would say that.
Yeah, that's another one. We're not going to check it now because I don't want to do any more editing. But yeah, that's what I wrote down. So let us know. We see Mary continuing to try and shoo the men away, and they finished at this point, so they are actually leaving. But she is surprised when they shed their skin, i.e. take their uniforms off. Don't know what the best way to describe it is. Uniform, overall, that's probably better. We come back to Kitty, and she's continuing to watch the film, and I wasn't sure what she was sort of feeling at this point, whether she was like interested in it or not. We find out that she's utterly horrified and terrified by all this. So yeah, it doesn't bode well for later on. We see Mike having sort of given up on trying to start a fire, decides that he's going to just use a heat lamp. So he trails an extension from outside to from inside to outside. Plugs in a
How
heat.
does he plug in the extension if he can't go inside?
I reckon they probably maybe didn't fumigate that room or something like that. I don't know.
How convenient.
Yeah. Or they've just finished. If they've finished now, maybe you can just go in. Like, I don't know.
Artistic license.
Yes, yeah. Let's leave it at that. He plugs in the heat lamp, but this just shorts the electric, cuts all the power in the house, which terrifies Kitty, and she runs away screaming. Fanny springs into action and goes trying to find where Kitty has gone to. Mike is defeated, realising that his power's cut, and just decides to throw away his camp chair in annoyance at all this. Back in the house, we see Kitty running around screaming. Robin and Julian hear this and go investigating, as does Fanny. They're sort of sneaking around in the dark. And this is where we see Robin and Julian. They go upstairs to sort of find Kitty, but decide to turn around and not do it. They say at the time it's not worth it, she'll be fine. But I think this is the first inklings we get that they're actually scared by this power
Thing
cut.
is, though, what are they scared of?
I know. It's funny, and it like
you're already dead and you're a ghost.
Yeah.
So you're not going to be scared. So if the lights went out, people might possibly say, oh, what if there's a ghost? Or
Yeah.
what if there's a monster? Well...
and what?
And even if there was a person who was going to hurt them, they're already dead. So
Yeah.
what are they scared of? Must be absolutely liberating to be a ghost.
They do say
You've got
fears.
no fear.
Well, fear's irrational though, isn't it? So maybe they just forget that they're
Some
dead.
fears are irrational, not all of them.
Fear of the dark might be.
Might be.
So who knows? But yeah, I know what you mean. Like, why are they scared? But they are.
But why?
But they give up and say that she'll be fine. We see outside, Alison's got a fire going, and she's cooked a tin of spaghetti, which Thomas says Italian food didn't agree with him. I like the idea of tin spaghetti being Italian food. Massive insult to any Italians out there. He's asked about Venice and what that was like, obviously. And again, all that he can conjure up with was that it was nice. So Alison kind of calls him out on this and says that he can't remember. It was 200 years ago. He can't remember everything. And she says that he didn't travel. He's made this up, which he then kind of gets caught out and says that he did travel there. And he travelled to Vienna and Venice and saw all these sites, but he just wasn't inspired by them, and just didn't. He said that he got nothing from it. Alison says he must have got something from the experience, and we then see a very brief flashback of Thomas in Italy. Clearly has got the runs, possibly this Italian
Travel foos.
Yes, possibly the Italian food he just mentioned. I was thinking about this, like if he's travelled to Venice and Vienna, that must have been absolute pain travelling back in those days. Like, because I guess you'd have to sail across.
Yeah,
It'd just take forever, wouldn't it?
Yeah, but then we could fly to Spain, but we're going on a boat.
That is true.
so-
That is true. Yeah, that's true. Yeah. But, I don't know, yeah.
Back in those days, it wouldn't be quite so luxurious.
Yeah, I was going to say it's probably a lot more perilous as well, travelling, like by boat then. So, Pat mentioned that he did actually want to travel as well. Like he mainly did holidays in this country, but he had planned for him and Carol to go to France for their anniversary, but never got to in the end. Alison asks him, why was that? He just bluntly says, I was dead. Which is sort of the best answer to that. Kitty then, from fleeing from the house, decides to join the campers and starts to explain about the lights going out and her experiences watching Grease.
Here you all are. Thank goodness. The lights went out in the house.
Oh, that's strange.
Yes, and the TV turned off.
Oh, sorry, Kitty.
That's okay. I wasn't much enjoying it anyway.
Oh, I thought you'd really like it, high school romance.
Yes, but I didn't like the man chasing the girl.
Well, he's the man of her dreams.
Yes. And he won't stop until he gets her.
That's what being in love is like. You should wait till the end, because then she starts chasing him.
Does she? I hope she gets him. Then we can all sleep again.
So obviously she's explaining the plot of A Nightmare on Elm Street, and Alison, not understanding that she'd switched the films, is just telling her about all these nice things in Greece that she's probably enjoying, which she definitely did not. We see Robin and Julian also join the group. They're scared from the house, but they're not admitting it at this point. And Pat suggests that maybe they go to tell some ghost stories, which Alison starts laughing at this, as Pat really doesn't understand the irony of them telling ghost stories, and he's actually quite offended by the suggestion. But then Pat goes on to actually tell one of his ghost stories.
Well, this one's actually a true story, actually. It's about my friend, Susan. Susan and I used to walk home together from school. She didn't have a dad, and her mum used to work late sometimes, so she used to have to let herself in. She had this little game she played with her doggy, you know, to let him know that it was her when she got home. She'd stick her hand in letterbox and he'd give it a lick, you know. Well, one day, she slowly crept up the stairs. All the while, she could hear it. Scratch. 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 She felt cold suddenly. She reached out her hand and the door creaked open. And there it was. A figure, standing, facing the wall. Slowly, very slowly, it began to turn towards her until she could finally see its face. It was a demon!
Elsewhere, we see Mike has finally, again, been even more defeated now. He's ordered a pizza. He's not even attempting to cook outside. To be honest, though, I've been camping a few times, and the one time we went, we just ordered a curry and brought it back, and we just the curry. It was way better.
What did you eat it with?
We had like the little spoons and the little plastic plates, paper plates. It's fine.
A curry on a paper plate?
Yeah. It was fine. At the end of Pat's story, Mary pops up and interrupts, scares them all. Robin and Julian run away, and we get this sort of chase scene where it's the cameras right in front of them as they're running through the forest, which always reminds me of Mitchell and Webb Look, the Digby Chicken Caesar sort of camera.
Or stop running in the back of a taxi. No, getting arrested.
Yeah, I remember that one. That was quite a sight. Alison goes to bed for the night, as do all the ghosts who are all surrounded her because they don't want to be sleeping on their own after being scared from the ghost story. Thomas suggests that he moves closer to Alison by swapping with Pat. And Kitty says that she's too scared to fall asleep, and Alison tells her to imagine the man from the film wrapping her in his arms, which she thinks is Danny Zuko, but obviously she's imagining Freddy Krueger with his claws, so it doesn't help the situation. Pat starts to tell a really embarrassing story about when him and Carol were in the middle of something and their son interrupted them. To which is just too much information for Alison. And she basically gets up and leaves at this point. Alison goes to check on Mike, who is surprisingly still in a standing tent. So he got it all sorted in the end. And she says that he won the challenge. And even though he says her tent was much better, she says that she had some help. And she says he's actually quite outdoorsy. We see him just smile that he's getting this credit. Elsewhere, we see Julian outside having an existential crisis. I can't even remember what it was about now, but I know it was just him close up, just panicking about being caught, basically, and by something. Even again, as you said, he's a ghost, so he doesn't need to worry. Robin finds him and says he knows what will keep them safe, and they disappear. In the morning, we see Pat has made his way to Mike's tent as he slept in there, and we also see Kitty's there, and she says that she hasn't slept, and she's scared of the man from the film getting her. To which Alison says Danny Zuko, and then lists out the other T-Birds, and she says no, Freddy Krueger, and then immediately she's like, oh no. Alison leaves the tent, and we see Thomas sort of sat watching the sunrise. And Thomas starts giving this sort of kind of like he starts talking about his travels.
Lovely, isn't it?
It is. I was just thinking it ought to be dull and commonplace. The same sunrise over the same house in the same tiny piece of England. Every day for 200 years. But it is beautiful. I travelled miles and was unchanged when I could have been here and transported. It's no fault of the sun if the eye sees not its beauty.
That was really poetic, Thomas.
The sun. The sun. You rise when night is done, like a big, yellow bun.
Yeah.
He sort of mentions that he doesn't understand how the same sight doesn't get dull. And even though all of the travelling did. I shall. And then Thomas says something actually that's quite poetic. He says that it's no fault of the sun if thine eyes see not its beauty, which Alison is dumbfounded by how poetic that is. And then as soon as she says that to him, she realizes he then tries to go into like overboard and tries to continue with this and just absolutely butchers all the poetry that he just conjured up by just trying to rhyme things with sun. They all go back into the house, and Pat says Alison's been great and gives her 3 badges, or he said he would if he could. And he also says that the captain would get one for teamwork, and the captain seems really proud of this. We then see Robin and Julian where they went, and we see that they're hiding in an alcove, and Mary starts laughing at them, saying that they're scared. And the reason why they went there is Robin explains that he did what he used to do, which is go to a cave, which I guess this is the closest to a cave that they've got. Alison asks if Julian switched over the channel to something more adult, and he immediately just goes, "What's the code?" And then we see Fanny jumping out of the window to sort of start the morning, and she wants them to do something, but obviously they're all tired from the night before, so they say no. She gets annoyed about this, and I think it's back to her usual ways of browbeating everybody. And then as they're just all walking in, Mike says to Alison, "No, don't forget that the boiler man's coming at 2, and Mary starts to panic, imagining what the boiler man is. So that's the end of the episode. So what do you think?
Yeah, I thought it was good. Not like a standout episode.
Yeah.
Really. Very similar. I'd give it like a half point. I can't remember what I gave it last week. Was it a 7.5? Or 7?
You got to be careful now.
Oh, okay. I think I'd give it a 7.5.
Yeah, okay.
I think it's kind of like, I think it was better than last episode. So whatever I gave last episode, give it a half a point more.
Yeah.
But I still don't feel like it was a standout. I think maybe in hindsight I scored last week too high.
Yeah.
So I'd like to retract last week. And I don't know.
Retroactively.
Yeah.
as well.
I think it was better than last week, but it was kind of not a brilliant standout episode like we've had before. It was just okay. I thought there were some funny points in it, and again, it's kind of like each of the ghosts doing their own thing and interacting with Alison.
Yeah.
Which I enjoyed. Thought some good quotes from it as well.
Yeah, definitely.
So yeah, I thought it was okay. I don't think it was bad. I don't think it was brilliant. I think it was just sort of average, but maybe a tiny bit better than last week and better than average. But you know what I'm trying to say.
I know
I'm
what you
just
mean,
going around the house.
It's better than last week's, but not the best episode.
Yeah.
I see what you mean. I actually quite liked it more than I thought I would. I thought it was a nice little like aside. There was no bigger story to it, so it was nice that it was just the ghosts and Alison and Mike interacting with the typical like miscommunication. It felt a lot like a strong early episode, like first series episode.
Yes, yeah.
Which I thought was similar, I suppose. Not the best, but very solid. I don't want to go into like 7.75s and stuff like that. Half marks are probably what I'm doing. So I'm going to be kind to this one. I'll probably give it an 8. You know.
Blimey.
Yeah.
Ghost jump from last week.
Yes, yeah, for me it was. Yeah, I feel like last week was quite... I felt like last week not a lot happened. It was just... At least with this one, there was a lot going on for it. So yeah, I gave it an 8. With IMDb, it was an 8.1 from 529 votes. So yeah.
Welcome, spirits and spectres, to Tasha's Spooky Corner.
So, this week, it's Luke's creepy corner. What do we call it now? I genuinely can't remember. So I did the research for this week. I think you needed a bit of time not doing the research. So.
Not looking at a computer screen, I think, is the key.
Yeah, so I thought I'd do this one. So this week we are looking at Aokigahara. I think that's how it's pronounced. Which is in Japan. It is known as the Sea of Trees. It's a forest which is located near Mount Fuji in Japan. It's known for its dense, lush vegetation and porous lava rock, which it sits on, which absorbs sound, which creates an unusually quiet atmosphere.
That sounds nice.
It's historically associated with Japanese mythology, where it's often linked with ghosts and spirits. It does have another name, which is an unfortunate name that the West kind of know it as, and it's known as the Suicide Forest because there's an unusually high amount of suicides that take place in the forest. Sometimes where it's people have gone there specifically, and as there's other parts in this where they note basically people just get lost because it's really disorientating.
Oh dear.
So yeah, this goes back to it tends to have a lot of signs urging people to seek help, instead of taking their lives, and this goes back to the 60s, and it's which is sort of mentioned. It's easy to get lost there as well, so there's a lot of other reasons. So, in addition to its notoriety as this, Aokigahara is also known for its natural beauty and tourist attractions. The forest is on volcanic rock, and it contributes to the unique ecological environment. Popular spots include the Narusawa Ice Cave and the Fugaku Wind Cave. So again, I'm sorry if I'm butchering the names there. Which, both notably for their year-round ice formations and unique geological features. The forest trees twist and turn, and their roots wind across the forest floor in treacherous threads. Because of this, the ground's filled with caves as well. But more jarring than its tricky terrain is the feeling of stillness. As I mentioned, the trees are tightly packed, so wind whips through and the wildlife is sparse. Some visitors have also reported strange phenomenon like compasses breaking, as well as GPS devices and smartphones no longer working. Weird things happen there. So, more to the point of what we're looking for. It's associated with death and evil spirits, known in Japan as Yurai. An ancient Japanese tradition called ubatsu, which means leaving, is said to contribute to this, where they're said, the tradition is said to be where elderly or sick people are taken and carried into the forest and just left there to die. So this is usually done if there are periods of famine or poverty and stuff like that. It's been dismissed as folklore. It's okay, sure, don't worry. It's been dismissed as folklore, but the stories do persist, and these angry spirits haunt the forest because of this, and they encourage people to basically join them in death. So in Japan, people believe that if you die in a sudden, unnatural or violent death, the spirit turns into these yurai. If the body's not properly buried, or if a person dies with strong negative feelings, such as depression or rage, then the spirit will turn into a yurai. So there's a lot of thought to these spirits inhabiting the forest. Also in the forest, you see lots of plastic ribbons that look like police tape. These are to basically encourage people to leave and also give them a trail back so they can get out of the forest. And at least once a year, local people and forest rangers go in searching for bodies. They literally call it the body hunt. And searchers report when they're walking through, they hear high-pitched screams and wailing in the otherwise silent forest. Tourists who brave the woods taking pictures and videos show mists and orbs. So there's not one specific instance of any specific ghost in this. There's just lots of stories. So very briefly on like the nature of these like spirits that they sort of mention in Japan, these yurai, which literally means faint spirit. They're believed to be, as mentioned, souls of the deceased who can't find peace and died with strong negative emotions. They're typically depicted wearing white burial kimonos and have long, unkept black hair. So, like, if you've ever seen The Ring or any kind of, like, Japanese horror film with ghosts in, you always see the ghosts tend to have this same kind of look to them. And this is where they come from. This like, spirit, these kind of ideas of the spirits there. I won't go into too much more detail about these, but yeah, that's kind of like the Japanese belief of ghosts. So that's it. Again, not really like a specific. There's one ghost from this, but there
must be a lot though.
I think that's the thing, because it's so linked with like different things happening there. That there's a lot of different stuff going on. But yeah, I thought it was interesting, mainly for how like ghosts are seen differently around the world. So obviously we typically have like grey lady ghosts and stuff like that, whereas in Japan it's more these like stuff that you would see like in The Ring and stuff like that, I guess. But yeah, I think that's everything for this week. So we'll speak to you next time.
Thanks for listening. We love to hear what you think, and if you'd like to keep up to date with when new episodes of the podcast are released, you can follow us on our Instagram and our Facebook profile. Just search Haunting Button House. You can also get in touch via email at hauntingbuttonhouse@outlook.com.